Hi, I'm Mary Waserstein. I'm a mom of four, a cookbook author, and a tablescape designer. Tonight's dinner is all about drama and big, bold tastes. We are going to be making a slow roasted pork loin with citrus, chilies, and it's going to go over a creamy bed of polenta with bright green spring greens on the side. The table setting is a very dramatic table setting using contrasting colors of red and blue, and it's fit perfectly with this big flavor, robust meal. So to start with the pork loin, this is a 3.5 pound pork loin, which is boneless and beautiful. I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. Get that going. That's always a good place to start. And it's going to go into a cast iron or a Dutch oven over high heat because we want to get a sear on it. There we go, got some heat, and we want to add a little bit of a drizzle to the bottom of the pan. Keep in mind, a pork loin isn't a particularly fatty piece of meat, so you really do need to have some fat in that pan. I like to season one side, the salt and pepper, put it in, and then, oh, listen to that, season. Let me get my paper towel, my trusty paper towel. I like to then season on the other side while it's in the pot, and I think that's just easier. It's all set to go. Perfect. Some more salt. Always use more salt than you think because it's a big piece of meat. So now this is going to go into a 325 oven for 2 hours. And what's fantastic about this is that it's one of those meals that's going to make your house smell delicious. So the ingredients, because it's a citrus and chili, involve a grapefruit, which we're going to cut into quarters. I love grapefruits, and the nice thing about this is the slow roasting of this, you don't get the pithy flavors at all. You just get that kind of like tangy wonderfulness from the grapefruit. I have here these fabulous blood oranges. You don't have to use blood oranges. I like blood oranges because they have a little bit of a berry flavor, and they happen to have them at my market today. So that was a big selling point. Alrighty, we have a chili, and then over here, we're going to use an onion. So effectively what we're doing is creating a bunch of different aromatics to really get our pork to a point where it's lovely and built out. And I'm going to find a fork, and I think this is heating up nicely. There we go. I'm going to flip it over, and look, we already have a good sear on that. So one thing I like to do while that's going on, we're going to add in our onion. This is going to be roughly cut because frankly, it's just about adding flavor. I'm going to add that right in there on the side. So that's just a medium, I would say, yellow onion. Perfect. And we want to let that sear for just, I don't know, a couple of minutes. All right, as we get everything prepped. Now, the chilies in this recipe are these wonderful potato chilies that have this fabulous berry smoky taste to them. And I mean, they're absolutely delicious. We're going to use 2 of them. As far as heat, they have less than a jalapeno. Jalapenos also going in, and these are all going to go into the oven whole. So what we're really trying to use are the flavors to impart to the pork. So we're just going to let this sit here, and I'm going to grab a spoon. We don't want our onions burning. There we go, there we go. Great. All right. Maybe adjust the heat a little bit. All right. There we go. Hopefully we don't smoke out the studio. Great. And what I'm going to do is to see that we have a little bit of color on the bottom. Let's take a peek. Perfect. So we have a little bit. We don't want to cook it all the way through because it's lean cutted meat. What we're going to do is add our oranges, which have been cut in half. Plonk those in there. Yummy. Our grapefruits. Again, these are pink ruby red grapefruit. I think they're a little sweeter, and I think that adds a little extra something, which is super helpful. All right, guys. Here we are. There we go. This is the whole jalapeno. That just goes right on top. Fantastic. And then we have, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cloves of garlic. And in they go. I'm looking at the pork right now, and I'm thinking could use a couple more turns of pepper. Don't forget, cooking is not an exact art. It's one of those things you have to adjust, and you want to use all your senses. You want to use your eyes, your taste, your smell, your ears. Like I can tell by listening to the pork that it's getting a really nice sear right now. So we've added our citrus, we've added our chilies, truck it along, and now of course we're going to add a little bit of liquid. And this is one of my favorite ingredients to cook with, which is ginger beer. There's no alcohol in it. It's loaded with fresh ginger. It has cane sugar in it. It's beautiful. It's fragrant. And I'm going to use half a bottle. You may be familiar with this from the Dark and Stormy, which is one of my husband's favorite drinks, that you'd have this with some rum. So actually, you've got the perfect amount left over to make yourself a dark and stormy if one wanted to. All right, so we're gonna add a couple more layers of flavor. I'm gonna add in a couple teaspoons of cider vinegar. Again, one of my favorite vinegars to cook with. And it just adds a little sharpness, which is great. Now, this is an ingredient that is becoming more and more commonplace, and it's pomegranate molasses. It is the bomb. It has this fabulous cross between, I would say, like tamarind and citrus, and it's tangy and bright. I put this in my baked beans. I put this in everything. And what I'm gonna do is a drizzle, and you can see it's really thick. I mean, I bought this at my local supermarket, and you can now buy it everywhere. It's coming out. It's taking a little bit of never comes out at the rate you'd like it to. But again, it has one of the best colorways, tasteways going, and it's this beautiful dark color, and it's made from pomegranates. It's really a lovely Middle Eastern ingredient that just seems to work with everything. Do yourself a favor, the next time you see this, grab pomegranate molasses. It's gonna become one of your go-to ingredients. All right, so now look, you can see what we're looking for here is we want it to come up to temperature. And by that, I mean, we want the ginger beer liquid to be bubbling, not just in that one corner, but all the way across. And it's okay if your citrus and your peppers are kind of all over the place. Oh wait, I didn't put the peppers in. Wow, that wasn't great. These are super important because it's a big part of the recipe. So make sure to throw those guys in. All right, now we're gonna bring this up to temperature because we wanna have it so there's a bit of a bubble to your liquid. And that way we're gonna make sure that we are all set to go when it gets in the oven and it has something warm to bathe in and get yummy and tasty in, and that's the big one. All right, we're starting to come up to temperature. I'm starting to see some bubbles over there, which is great. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop the top on. Perfect. It's a little hot, so I'm gonna use my super attractive oven mitts. And I'm just gonna get my oven ready, which is 325. And it's gonna go in for 2 hours. So this is a real slow and low recipe. There we go, perfection. All right, before you know it, the house is gonna smell fabulous, our apartment. This is a great time, so we've got our bright, beautiful, robust pork loin in the oven with the citrus and the chilies. Now we can go to that beautiful tablescape, which is bright and dramatic and using dramatic colors of red and blue to set the contrast.
Sometimes you just want a dramatic evening. Maybe you're making some spicy food, maybe you have some controversial friends coming over. And what's better than that is setting a dramatic table. And one of the ways that I find really helpful to set a dramatic table is with contrasting colors. Things that are really going to pop. We're not going for subtle. This is not monochromatic. This is not like a casual boho vibe. This is bright, colorful. Oh my gosh, this is dramatic. So the way that I started our table, the two colors I went with to start with are blue and red. And I think unfortunately we have this concept of blue and red as only belonging to 4th of July. And that's simply not true. I mean, I look at it as an incredibly French and very chic color combination. To start with, as always, I find my tablecloth, which is I look at as my base. This is a wonderful red and white iCat, which unto itself has lots of drama. It's a big pattern, big personality. On top of that is this lovely dark blue placemat with this red fringe detail. Details like this can make all the difference between a bland placemat and a fabulous placemat. Now, I've mentioned before that I adore fringes and trim and all these things because it's those small details that make all the difference. On top of that, to kind of give a little depth and interest, I've gone with a natural woven rattan place charger. The nice thing about this is it's kind of a neutral and adds an interesting texture. In keeping with our contrasting colors, I've gone with a blue and white plate, which is beautiful and classic and has a bit of a chinoiserie vibe to it. The red napkin is held together with a really kicky, personality-filled napkin ring. And what I love about this is it offers a bit of jewelry. So at night, it's going to sparkle. There's beads, there's silver, there's all types of things. And I did this just tucked in and laid on top. The flatware tonight is just super simple silver. You don't need to introduce a lot of pattern there or personality. It's just a good, solid basic. The water glasses is a clear wine glass, and then for the water goblet is a turquoise. Although not in the same navy colorway as all the other blues, it's still in the blue family. And I adore how turquoise and red look together. Wonderfully contrasting. They also both have really fun patterns on them. I'm a big advocate of having wine glasses and water glasses that have an extra little zhuzh to them. And in this case, it's these fabulous embossed patterns. The drama of the place settings is carried into our centerpiece. We have blue and white ginger jars, foo dogs tucked in throughout, which are the same color as our water glasses. Here's another one of these little cuties right there, just tucked right in. And it's a point of interest for our guests to look at. The flowers are done in a really kind of kicky and different little vase, which is actually, in fact, a pitcher. The rattan and vintage water bottles carry through the rattan that we see on the chargers. All in all, we have created a dramatic table that's ready for anything tonight.
Hi, well, I hope that gave you some inspiration. And there's tons of great contrasting colors. Just think of things which are kind of opposites, like a hot and a cool. Red is hot, blue is cool, and you're sure to get something that's dramatic and wonderful and kind of a talking piece for your guests. So to go with our beautifully citrusy and chili infused pork loin, we're gonna do a creamy polenta, and I love polenta. You can definitely buy instant, but I'm a big fan of using this fine cornmeal, and I'm waiting for my chicken stock to come up to temperature. You wanna have it to a simmer. Now, it's lovely if you have your own chicken stock, and sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't have the time to make chicken stock. And there are so many wonderful and tasty chicken stocks that are available in the market. So don't feel like if I don't have homemade chicken stock that I'm somehow should not be making polenta. You can definitely do an instant, but this is one of these things that once you do it, you realize how easy it is. And it's really a numbers game. The ratio is 4 cups liquid to 1 cup polenta. So it's a 4:1 ratio. And from there, you basically have a blank slate. Effectively, you can add in, after the polenta is made, you can add in cheeses and butter and anything you can think of. You could even fold in bacon bits. I mean, it's really unlimited. And it should be noted that this is also, polenta is a nice cousin of grits, which is a southern specialty, which I'm a big fan of. I'm just waiting for this to come to a bit of a simmer. You know, the whole thing, you can just see it starting to bubble. Although, even if you make your own stock, you should always test your stock for salt level. And that's really important because, you know, you just want to make sure, because keep in mind, like, that's how you're getting your flavor into your ground corn, is by the fact that the stock is sufficiently salted. So I tasted this while we were looking at Tablescapes and just waiting for it to come up. And then what I'll do, I have my balloon whisk here, and you want to use like a very sturdy whisk because it's a bit of a workout, and it's actually, and then back it up with your wooden spoon. And actually, it's one of those recipes that I call calorie and fat negative, because the workout you're going to get from making the polenta negates 100% all the wonderful naughty ingredients are going to go in there. All right, I'm starting to see some action, which means I'm going to prepare, and the key here is movement. So what I want to do is I want to make sure, waiting, why is it whenever you want someone to do something, it just doesn't quite do it? All right, we're going to start. We're almost there. Okay, so you want to just kind of go in slowly like this. And I'm whisking, and I'm making sure that we don't get any of the dread lumps. And that is the biggest thing. So it's just kind of slow and even. If you've ever made a homemade mayo, it's the same kind of idea. All right, here we go. It will come up to temperature. Okay. We've got this on high. All right, slowly adding this in, incorporating it in, and really just being careful. This may seem like a bit of a fussy dish, but it really isn't, because once you get past this initial point of adding all of this in, it goes pretty quickly. The other thing too, for whatever it's worth, is that sometimes I find I need a little extra cornmeal, and I'm wondering where that might be, if it's not going to be thick enough. keep in mind too, is that you want a thicker polenta because you're gonna add other things to it. For instance, you're gonna add butter, and you're gonna add cheeses, and you're gonna add other things, but as the corn cooks, it's gonna thicken up. Here we go. This is starting to look more like it. All right, let's see what happens. We get this. This does look a little thin, so I think I could actually use a little more in there. Yep, here we go. I think what I'm gonna do is, based on what I'm seeing, I think I'm gonna definitely grab some more polenta. Perfect, I think the polenta fairies showed up. And I have some more cornmeal. So I'm gonna eye this. This is just kind of me, and I think this is probably, I don't know, a little shy, a little more. And I see it's getting thicker. It's gonna start bubbling. There we go. And one thing you should remember also is that, I don't know, I think corn and pork, there we go. We're starting to get some more action here. This is really turning into a 2-4 ratio, so my number game is way off. All right, come on. It's just a little more dramatic, but that's okay. This is kind of a well-tempered polenta. Here we go. All right, and now I can feel from my whisk that there's a little bit more resistance. And let's wait, we've got the whisk all in. Oh, this is really gonna thicken up beautifully. And you can actually see in there where it's starting to get a little thicker. We need to start bubbling. Fantastic. All right. All right, and while that bubbles away, I'm gonna talk about, we're gonna keep our eye on that because it's one of these things that should be tended. It's a bit like risotto, but I can already tell it's gonna be really lovely. So let's let this start bubbling. Oh, there we go, making attention. So I always like to have, when I have a rich dish like pork and polenta, you wanna have, there we go, yep. And you can see how it's getting thick. And you know what? I think I could actually keep whisking it. It's getting a little thicker. Okay, perfect. It's absorbing all of that. We're gonna drop the heat down. Oh, this is gonna be tasty, I can already tell. There we go. And what we wanna make sure we don't have is a lumpy polenta. So the way the polenta is gonna thicken effectively is that the corn is gonna absorb all that stock and it's gonna bubble up. Oh, this is looking good. This is what we're looking for, people. All right, cool. So that is set to go. Let's put the top on that before it burns everybody. Perfect. And we're gonna let that sit for a second. Okay, so we're gonna use one of my favorite springtime greens, which we've all seen on our lawns. And this is a domesticated dandelion green, and it's really something special. It's got a wonderful bitter taste to it, which you wouldn't think of bitter as being something that you want to, we'll just take a peek at the polenta, make sure it's behaving. Whoa, that is doing good things there. Oh my gosh, look at that. Yay, polenta. All right, keep that down a little bit lower because we don't want it to scorch. All right, so back to the dandelion greens. We have these on our lawn. This is a domestic one. It actually looks like, if you look at it like the stuff we see on our lawns, sans the flowers. And what I'm gonna do with this is I'm just gonna, I don't want to mince it down too much because it's a bit like a spinach in the fact that it's going to lose a lot of its volume. So this is going to be cooked really simply, and it does have a bit of a tougher stem here. So it's not as tough as, like, say, a collard green. It's more like a chard. So here is my wonderfully unheated pan, which we're going to bring up to temperature. And while that's going on, and it doesn't really require a lot of attention. So over here you can see there's water that's on the greens that I'm not overly drying because I'm going to use that as part of the cooking process, which is great. Ooh, there we go. Oh, little polenta on me. We're already best friends. Perfect. Now I'm gonna give this another 5 minutes. Perfect. All right, let's start thinking about over there. So what I'm gonna do with our greens is I'm not gonna add any garlic to it. I'm making it very simple. It's just the dandelion greens, a little bit of olive oil, and salt and pepper. And I wanna keep that very basic. If you wanted to kind of like zhuzh it up a little bit, you could put some lemon zest in there because the lemon zest would really play the herbaceousness. This isn't my favorite piece, so we're gonna put that over there. And we're getting there. Yep, perfect. We don't wanna fry these. So, and the nice thing about these is they can actually, they're not a delicate green as I mentioned. They're certainly not a tough green, but I don't have to really worry about the fact that I am gonna throw them on now. Here we go. Okay, perfect. And at some point eventually this year, we'll hear a sizzle on this. Perfect. Look how big those are, and you're gonna be so amazed This would be a great thing to cook with tongs, if I remember to bring tongs. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a taste of the polenta. So, let me just grab the spoon really quickly. And what I'm looking for is to make sure it's not toothy, if that makes any sense. I want it to be soft. Oh God, that's so good. All right, that is fantastic. Let that continue through. I would say it probably needs about another minute. Look at that. And this is what I'm talking about when I say that it looks a little on the thick side and you want that because you're gonna add other ingredients to it, which are gonna thin it out, such as butter. And I was actually thinking about adding some mascarpone to it because it really adds that extra something that is really wonderful. Okay, so the greens are over here. You can start seeing something coming off. Let's do the size adjuster. Fantastic. Great. And so while those are going, we've got our polenta, we'll keep it covered. We will grab our butter. I would say with this that you probably want to use 2 tablespoons of butter, and you can add that in now, and that'll go right in, which is great, perfect. And then mascarpone, which a lot of people associate with tiramisu and desserts and that type of thing, but in fact, it has a wonderful kind of like sour creaminess to it, which really works well with the richness of the polenta. So that's really great. That's going in. Oop, those are a little yucky brown spot. We'll take those off. Again, I promise I bought this at the market. They did not come from my lawn. I know that some people actually do use the dandelion grains off their lawns. That's really a personal choice that you have to make. I would say this is just a healthy spoonful. There we go. Perfect. And then we want to add into this is loads of black pepper. All right. So we've got the black pepper. And while everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, I'm gonna go pull our pork out of the oven. Now, we have a magic oven here. So what would take you at home to cook in, I don't know, 2 hours, only takes us, and we're gonna let that sit there and melt, get that all mixed in, only takes us 15 minutes, or half an hour rather. Perfect. Ah, look at that. That polenta is just heavenly. Those greens are doing what they're supposed to do. That is the water. Great. All right, let's take a quick peek at those greens. As I said, a great thing to use here would be tongs, but we don't always have what we need. And we're just letting those reduce down. This pan that I have doesn't have necessarily a top to it, but if you wanted to, you can see the bottom pieces are actually starting to wilt, and it wilts pretty quickly. And you want to keep it where there's a lot of, you don't want it to mush into nothing. You want it to have a little bit of body and personality. All right, so we have our polentas finished. And I can tell you from here, just take one more stir. Oh, look at that. I may add a bit more black pepper, which I think is really, kind of adds a little bit of a kick there. It's looking very good and creamy. A lot of people like to add Parmesan cheese. I just felt like with the flavor profiles that we were working with, this was kind of the best way to go. Okay. You know, the other thing that's lovely to add on here is you could definitely add on a truffled butter or a truffled olive oil to finish it. All right, now we're gonna pull our pork out of the oven, our magic oven that cooks things in a fraction of the time. There we go. Oh la la. So just a reminder, that is a 3.5 pound pork loin, which would feed, I think, generously 8 people because you're gonna have all these other little sides. Keeping my eyes on this. Here we go. These guys are melting down. I mean, if you could smell this, it smells like spring. I mean, it's just so good. I may add a touch more oil because it's looking a little dry. There we go. Again, there's no wrong answers. And you know what? I think I forgot to season this. So let's give this a little bit more salt. And that will definitely help it break down. And a little black pepper. Great. And I'm not going to do lemon zest on it. Wow, this is really coming together nicely. And I'm just using a folding technique because these guys are definitely a bigger green. All right, time to get to that showstopper and wait till you see what we have here. And I'm actually gonna pull it over here so we can get a beautiful shot of it coming off. What it looks like, prepare to be dazzled. Look at that. It's absolutely succulent pork loin that is it's falling, I mean, it shreds beautifully, as you can see. And you've got all this lovely citrus and flavor. Just absolutely stunning. The chilies are in there. I mean, this is just perfect. And you can slice it off, but look how tender that is. It's pretty amazing. So, the way that I would serve this is family style. Because sometimes, and I have to be candid, I get pretty sick of doing dishes. So one way that I'll cut back on dishes is by doing things and I serve them out of what I cook them in. I'll put these away. And the great thing about that is, I think actually the presentation and those pots are really beautiful. Here we are, the greens. I'm not a huge fan of how this looks. So I have a pretty white dish here that I'm just gonna put these guys in. I mean, again, we're focusing on big, bold flavors today. That wonderful contrasty table. We've got these greens out that look great and fragrant. See how nicely they cook down? Fantastic. So we've got our greens. And then we have our sweet pot of polenta. And I'm gonna put that in front. Whoops, there we go. You know, you always wanna make sure you're testing everything for flavor. Now, here we go. And this pot, I think, is perfect to serve with. We'll put this over here so as not to burn anything. So here we have an example of a lovely, bright, fork on the ground, a bright citrusy, chili-infused pork loin. Beautiful, beautiful dandelion greens, which have been sauteed with olive oil, salt and pepper, and then a polenta over here, which was made with mascarpone and butter and salt and pepper. I mean, look how pretty that is and so yummy. Everyone's gonna love that. You could either shred the pork when you serve it, or you could take it out and slice it on a cutting board. Either way, or you could cut it, actually, you could slice it. Here's a great way we can do this. We can find a fork. Oh, the fork was on the ground, so we'll do it this way. Is you can actually, look at that, slice it up this way. I'm Mary Waserstein, and this is Cooking in Tablescapes with Mary Waserstein.